Zach, do you remember what happened that day?
I don't remember that whole year.
Yeah.
But I do remember seeing the light and everything like that.
Wow. And Victor, tell us the story. I mean, it must have been just devastating. Again, the young man I worked on, his dad was standing by when it all went down, and I thought to myself, oh, I don't think he understands what is going on here.
Yeah, I did understand. I mean, I knew something was bad. So at the end of the game, Zach returned to play after his first concussion in the second quarter. He was a linebacker and the fullback, and he played every down. He missed 3 plays, came back into the game in the second half, and at the end of the game, he was shaking his head, and it wasn't a good shake. And then I walked out and asked him what was going on, and he said, "Daddy, my head hurts. It hurts." And he, kids going, almost 14 don't call their dad daddy anymore, and it wasn't going in the right direction, and it was hurting him so bad that I was trying to set him down, and another dad came out, knew something was really bad. We were trying to walk him off the field, and he's like, Dad, don't put me down, and my head hurts, Dad, it hurts. And when I looked into his eyes, his right pupil had blown, and then he went into everything that you're talking about. He started posturing. Yeah. He started not being able to control himself at all, and that's when, the last thing he said is, Daddy, I can't see. Oh. I laid on top of him, and I wanted somebody to fix it right now, and I was just begging God to keep him alive, and it was tough. It was, of course, tough. So we didn't have any medical personnel on the sidelines, and we had to wait for the medevac to come in. So they airlifted him out, and my wife was on the way to the game, and I had to call her and tell her, to come to the hospital. Actually, somebody else did that, and we got down to the hospital, and that's when we started this journey. And it was a long night, and it's been 4.5 years, and we're moving in the right direction now.
Looking pretty good, Zach.
Thank you.
Feeling pretty good?
I'm feeling better, yeah.
You're back at school?
Yeah, I'm taking 2 classes up there.
And my understanding is you can walk now, too.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you have any message for players out there, parents out there?
If your child is suspected of having a brain injury, when in doubt, sit them out.
When in doubt, sit them out.
That's what I've learned.
Dr. Kutcher, that is, I don't know if you just invented that right here, but it's bringing tears to my eyes. When in doubt, sit them out. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. And what kinds of things should parents be concerned about or looking for?
Well, one of the challenges is that brain injuries are variable injuries.
And let's be clear, this was not a concussion. This was an intracranial hemorrhage.
Correct.
Probably some weakness in his vessels that got triggered by the head injury, wouldn't you say?
I would say that that was part of it. There's certainly hemorrhage involved.
Yeah.
Probably was a concussion involved
to begin with,
that
right?
too.
The concussion would cause the vascular process.
Zach certainly had more than a concussion.
Yes.
But in either case, it's something that is so difficult to recognize sometimes because it can be really subtle changes in people's personality. It can be things that don't maybe seem that important at first. That's why this law is so important, because it gives people the opportunity to, once you even suspect it, you have to bring the person out and observe them and do an evaluation before things get too serious.
Now, we're going to get into concussion in more detail in the next segment, but what is it about the repetitive head injury that leads to situations like this and is of such concern?
So there is the second impact syndrome is a description of a type of injury, essentially where you have one hit, you have a concussion, and while the brain is still vulnerable from that first injury, a second hit causes a much more serious injury.
And that is more concussion or bleed, which are 2 different things again.
And that is exactly, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That has not entirely been defined. So it's really, second impact syndrome to me is more just the concept of when you have a first injury, while that brain is susceptible.
Sit them out. Sit them out. Don't even worry about what's coming next. Sit them out.
Whether it's a worse concussion or a bleed.
I feel like you got something to say.
Oh, I have lots to say.
Is that true of your dad in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you know,
Well, that's why you're here. We want you for parents at home. You know, again, people are going to put their kids in football. I'm putting my kids in
well,
football.
you know, it's just like what we've done is, and there's been so many people that have started this pioneer movement and of education, and what you're doing is doing that same thing, and it's going to save lives. This show is going to save people's lives just because people are going to start thinking about concussion management, education. What should I do? And the easiest thing to do is to get looked at, is to get treated, you know, and time heals concussions, and if you don't give the time, you know, I don't think people really would want to do what we do every day.
Victor, I hear you, and I want to thank you for, first of all, creating the law, secondly, sharing your story with us, and three, being such a great advocate and really being of service to everybody out there. You know, there's a certain amount of risk in your kids playing sports, no matter what the sport is, football being a high-impact sport, having lots of risk. But let's try to save lives, diminish that risk, and I hope that's what we're doing here today.